As of right now, there are about 200 open missing and unidentified children cases in Arizona as of right now. The faces you are seeing here are just some of the missing children of Phoenix, Arizona. Today, though, we are focusing on one of these children, and that is MYRON TIMELL TRAYLOR. Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. And if you're new to my channel, hello, my name is Gabby and welcome. If you've never been here before, have no idea what I do here on my channel, I cover true crime cases, and pretty much all the cases that I cover are a little bit more on the vintage side. They're all basically 20 years or older. So if that's something you might be interested in, maybe go down below, click that subscribe button, and also make sure to turn on the post notifications to be notified every time that I upload. The case that I'm covering today on my channel comes out of Phoenix, Arizona, like I said at the beginning, and I feel like I've covered a few cases that have come out of Arizona. When I started looking into this case, I could not believe how many missing children cases come out of that state. This is a missing children's case from back in the 80s, and pretty much all of the information surrounding this case just upsets me. Now, this case took me down a rabbit hole, but I did get most of my information from an article that was released by azcentral.com, and they basically spoke directly to MYRON's aunt, Sandra. I would say about 80% of this video did come from that article. Some of the other information came from other articles, but it was basically just highlighting different aspects and facts to the case, but pretty much everything of substance comes from Sandra herself. So with all of that being said, we're gonna hop right into the case. This is the unsolved disappearance of MYRON TIMELL TRAYLOR. MYRON TIMELL TRAYLOR was born on October 1st of the year 1974 to parents Leroy Williams and Debbie Traylor. MYRON was known as an extremely well-behaved kid. He was 13, he was a teenager, but he really didn't get into any trouble at all. He did well in school and always listened to authority, especially his mother. MYRON was very involved in his church, which was the Southminster Presbyterian Church. MYRON had also just joined a baseball league, which he was so excited about. He was number 33. He also loved drawing and reading. He was just a great kid with so much going for him. Now, I can't cover MYRON's case without going into a little bit about his parents and his living situation at the time of his disappearance. MYRON's parents met in high school, never got married, and were separated most of MYRON's life. His father, Leroy, was not really in MYRON's life much. MYRON saw him a few times a year from what I read, and at the time of MYRON's disappearance, Leroy was in prison. It was made clear by MYRON's aunt Sandra in the article I read that his mother, Debbie, did have an issue with addiction, and it made it hard for her to care for her children at times. During the school year, MYRON and his half-brother Charlie did live with their aunt Sandra in Scottsdale, Arizona, because if they lived with their aunt, they would be in a different school zone and they would be able to attend a better school that way. Scottsdale and Phoenix are not that far apart in distance if you're not from that area or the United States. It's only about a 20-minute drive, so they did get to see their mother pretty much all the time. This story, though, takes place during the summer of 1988, and during this summer, MYRON was staying back with his mom just for the summer, and his half-brother was visiting his uncle out in California. So MYRON was staying during the summer with his mother in Phoenix, Arizona. Pretty much every day, MYRON and his mother had a routine. Around when the sun was going down, they would start walking from Debbie's home to Debbie's parents' home that was located on Pecan Road about a half-mile away. From there, MYRON would go across the street and grab his best friend, and they would both take the bus to a local church for Bible school. The two would spend a few hours there, and then when it was over, they would hop back on the bus and go back to Pecan Road. So on July 27th of 1988, which was a Wednesday, that was their plan. Now, before leaving for Bible school, though, he was going to phone his half-brother in California from his grandparents' home because Debbie did not have a phone at her house. So it was around 6 p.m. and MYRON and his mother Debbie were making their way to MYRON's grandparents' home on Pecan Road. This time though, Myron had a bag of dirty laundry with him because he was going to go to his grandparents' house, and he was also going to wash his clothes because his mother, Debbie's washing machine, had broke the week before. So they're just walking to Pecan Road, Myron and his mother. And of course he's got this bag of laundry with him. And they got close. And then they saw a restaurant that is called OK Fish and Chips. Myron had some loose change in his pocket and told his mother he was going to grab a drink from the restaurant. They were close to his grandparents' home, so Debbie said she was just going to finish the walk there and he could meet her there after he was done at the restaurant getting his drink. From my research, Myron did not always stop at this restaurant on his way to his grandparents' home with his mom, but this day, it was a hot day in Phoenix, Arizona, and Myron grew up in the area. He was used to the heat, but from my research, he had been kind of working outside all day. He had been playing outside. He was out in the heat pretty much all day long. He was hot, and he didn't want to wait until he got to his grandparents' home because, yeah, he could have got a drink at their home. You know, he could have gotten a drink there, but he really wanted a drink from OK Fish and Chips that was called a wild cherry drink. We do know for 100% that Myron did go alone into this restaurant and get a drink because authorities talked directly to the employee who rang him up that day for his wild cherry soft drink. Her name is Lena Watt. Lena told authorities that Myron walked up to her that day and asked for the drink. He paid, quickly gulped down his drink, and asked for another. She refilled his cup, she said goodbye, and he waved goodbye to her, and he was on his way with his bag of laundry. When authorities spoke to Lena, she said that she never knew the boy's name, but she had seen the boy from around the neighborhood, and she knew that he was just a good kid and that he never really caused any issues with anyone around the area. Lena said that she had been working the takeout window that day, and authorities asked her if there had been anyone else in the restaurant or anyone outside at the picnic tables, if there was just anyone around the restaurant at that time of the day, and she said no. It was basically completely vacant, like no one was there except Myron, who had come up and got his drink and left. Lena was the last known person to have seen Myron that day and spoke to him, but unfortunately, she told authorities when he left the restaurant, she didn't really see what direction he left in, whether he was going towards Pecan Road or another direction. Within the very short distance from the OK Fish and Chips restaurant to where his grandparents lived on Pecan Road, which was about a 4 to 5 minute walk, Myron vanished and has never been seen again. After Debbie arrived at her parents' home, she spoke with them briefly and then started looking out the window waiting for Myron to show up. He never did. Around 7 p.m., her worry turned into panic. She started walking back towards the OK Fish and Chips to retrace Myron's walk and see if something happened along the way. She even spoke directly to Lena Watt, who told her the same story she would later tell authorities about her encounter with Myron that day. Most of the time when Myron went to his grandparents' home, they would cut through a vacant lot because it took less time to go through that vacant lot than to go down the street to Pecan Road, and his mother went through this vacant lot and looked for him, and still no trace of her son anywhere. Debbie knew that something was wrong. Myron was not the type to just not show up somewhere when he said he was going to be there. He was not the type to just run off, and he was definitely not the type to stay out late roaming the streets. Debbie got back to her parents' home and phoned the police. Police, like we've heard so many times before, did not take Myron's disappearance seriously at first. They told Debbie that he was probably just out with his friends and would show up eventually. This left Myron's mother with no other choice than to try to gather up some people and look for her son herself. So that's exactly what she did. They searched the streets, they looked everywhere for the boy and found absolutely no traces of him or the entire bag of laundry he was carrying with him. Throughout the searching though, Debbie kept phoning the police, trying to convince them to come help and to take her son's disappearance seriously. They finally would start taking her son's case seriously hours later at around 2 in the morning. They decided to finally send someone over to check things out. None of Myron's friends had heard from him. No one in his Bible school had seen him. It was like the boy had just vanished. Police talked to everyone with any connection to Myron, and they heard the same things over and over again. great things about MYRON. How MYRON was a great kid, MYRON would never just leave, someone had to be responsible, something had to have happened. The next morning on July 28th, there was a huge search going on for the boy. All of MYRON's family members and friends were out searching for him, and also his church. The pastor at his church loaded up the church van with people from the church, and they all went to the area where MYRON was last seen and started looking for MYRON even more intensely than the day before. They were determined to find some trace of him or some clues as to what happened. They decided to hand out missing persons flyers as well and ask everyone they came across if anyone had seen MYRON. MYRON was just honestly so cared about by his community. Well, as the search for MYRON continued, police wanted to speak to anyone who saw MYRON the day that he went missing. They of course spoke to Lena Watt. Her story was always the same, and she always claimed that she saw no one else in the restaurant that day and that MYRON did not speak to anyone else besides her when he was there. The next person they knew, of course, that saw MYRON the day of July 27th was obviously his mother, Debbie. Police started questioning Debbie, and they wanted every single detail about that day, which of course they wanted every detail about that day. They wanted everything that MYRON did that day, everything leading up to his disappearance. She was the main person with him. Obviously, they needed to talk to her, and they needed to talk to her in great detail. They needed to get all the facts straight. Well, there was one thing that police wondered, and it is probably the one thing that you're all wondering right now, and that is, why didn't Debbie just wait for MYRON outside of the OK Fish and Chips, or just go in there with him? Why didn't she just stay with him? Debbie's answer to this question was basically that they were just so close to her parents' house anyway, and that she just figured she'd walk ahead and that MYRON would be there in a few minutes anyway. But still, this answer, it just didn't make a lot of sense to authorities, because yeah, you're close to your parents' house, so why wouldn't you just wait for MYRON anyway? That's even a bigger reason to just wait for your son. It's only gonna take him maybe, what, a minute or two to get the soda? Why wouldn't you just wait? Why wouldn't you just wait? Plus, MYRON had a bag of laundry with him, and now he was going to have a drink. Wouldn't you think that she would also help him carry something? It just didn't make any sense. Also, it was hot out too. Are you not thirsty? Maybe you should have gone in the AC and just gotten a drink yourself. Like, it didn't make any sense. We do know that Debbie was at her parents' home. Police didn't think Debbie herself did something directly to him, but they did believe maybe she knew something else. Maybe she was hiding something. Maybe she knew of someone else who may have been involved in some way. Someone who may have done something to MYRON. So they asked Debbie to do a polygraph test. Debbie agreed. She agreed, and she passed. Even though Debbie passed the polygraph test, which a polygraph test, of course, we know doesn't prove innocence, but police would later say that they thought that Debbie possibly took something to calm her nerves so that she would pass the polygraph test. Now, this was never proven 100%. This was just a theory by authorities. Now, all in all, police found no clues of foul play, but based on words from his loved ones and learning more about MYRON and how respectful he was and how he would never just run away or leave on his own, they did ultimately come to the conclusion that his disappearance had to be the result of some sort of crime. Like I stated before, they got Lena Watt's story and they got his mother's story, but there was a third person who said that they saw MYRON the day around the time he vanished. Here we get to pretty much the main suspect in MYRON's case. This person is Geddes Mintz. He was Debbie's boyfriend at the time of MYRON's disappearance. Geddes had been released from prison in July of 1987. He had been in there since 1981 for a charge of aggravated assault. Geddes was one of the few witnesses who claimed they saw MYRON at the OK Fish and Chips the day he vanished. Geddes didn't give much detail though. He claimed he was at the business complex across the street from the restaurant and happened to look over to the restaurant and see MYRON there with a big plastic bag. Geddes, though, said he went about his own business after he saw him and left the area before Myron even left the restaurant. He gave no other information to authorities besides that. From my research, apparently there were a few witnesses besides Geddes who had seen Myron leaving the OK Fish and Chips or entering the OK Fish and Chips, but they had not been customers of the restaurant. I could not find any more information on those other people. I think it's because they didn't have much to give the investigation, but the main people were, of course, Lena Watt and Geddes Mintz. They were the two main people who were involved in the case, who interacted with Myron or knew him and definitely saw him entering the building, or they're at the building or leaving the building. The search for Myron was one of the biggest searches of a missing person in Phoenix, Arizona's history. They couldn't find anything though, and from my research through the years, it was really his Aunt Sandra who never stopped searching, and she has made it clear that she believes her sister Debbie knew something more, and that something more may have involved her boyfriend at the time, Geddes Mintz. There were quite a few things that made Geddes Mintz look suspicious in this case. Other than what I stated before, according to Sandra, the night that Myron went missing and the immediate search was being done for him, Geddes showed up to the home on Pecan Road. He showed up with his arm freshly bandaged up. She asked him what had happened, and he told her that he had been bitten by a dog earlier on. Yeah, it didn't look good for Geddes. Myron's mother did try hard at the beginning of Myron's disappearance, but as time went on, that kind of faded out. I was able to locate Geddes's police records. They are online. He had attempted to commit armed robbery on October 20th of 1987, and he finally went away for the crime on March 13th of 1989. So he was free from July of 1987 to March of 1989. In this time, of course, Myron went missing. Now, according to Sandra, about a month before Geddes went back to prison in 1989, he showed up to the home on Pecan Road. The family chased him out, but Debbie went with him. She left the family home with Geddes. That next month, he was back behind bars and wouldn't be released until May 28th of 1996. I bring this up because during these years, it was almost like Debbie just vanished into the darkness herself when it came to Myron's case. She didn't really help much in the search anymore. She quit her job, and family at times didn't even know where she was. She would end up passing away in 2002 from cancer, leaving behind the question to many as to whether she ever knew more about her son's disappearance or not. It was known by many that Debbie did have a problem with drug use, and some brought forward the theory that she may have sold Myron for money. Even Myron's best friend stated that he heard Debbie owed someone money. Now, this is all just a theory. There is no proof to back up this claim. This all is just alleged information. In this case, there are still narrowed eyes on Geddes Mintz. He is someone with a lengthy history when it comes to violence who never seemed to go down a better path in life. From my research, Geddes was, like I stated before, released from prison in 1996. But he would be behind bars yet again years later. Did you think possibly Geddes was a criminal but not capable of actual murder? Well, think again. On February 9th of the year 2009, 55-year-old Geddes Mintz killed his 48-year-old girlfriend named Phyllis Tucker and also attacked her 69-year-old mother in Peoria, Arizona. He was arrested 2 days later on the 11th. He was charged with second-degree murder and aggravated assault. His release date is set for March of 2047. Geddes Mintz is someone greatly looked at in this case of Myron's disappearance for the reasons I stated before, and also because he was involved in the drug world in that area back then. He was involved in some bad stuff, and because of his involvement with drugs, that's how Sandra thinks her sister Debbie originally met him, but she is not 100% sure of that. There is one huge theory in this case that you will find online, and that is that Myron, after he got his drink at OK Fish and Chips, that he ran into his mother's boyfriend at the time, Geddes Mintz, and that maybe he said something about the drug use going on or the involvement in drugs, and that may have been the reason why Geddes did something to Myron. That is all just alleged. We don't know if that is true or not, but that is one theory in this case. Now, with this case, there is so much more than an innocent child going missing and a mother's boyfriend looking suspicious. When I started looking into this case, I was not expecting to come across some of the information that I did. Myron's Aunt Sandra has made it clear that she believes still to this day someone knows what happened to Myron and that someone is watching and someone is keeping tabs. This poor woman, Sandra, she has had so many strange things occur through the years, all kind of revolving around Myron's disappearance. We've heard before of disgusting pranksters turning a serious case and a grieving family into some sort of a playground for jokes, but what's occurred in this case is beyond strange. It is absolutely spine-chilling. The home on Pecan Road, which was the home that Myron and his mother were walking towards the day that Myron went missing, that home was owned by his grandparents, which were Claude and Ruthie Traylor. They lived there until they passed away in the early 90s, and then the home went to Sandra. Everything kind of revolved around that house or the immediate area around that house. Letters, phone calls, those things, for instance, it was all basically targeted at that house. We're gonna get into a whole lot of things that are just weird. For instance, one time, Myron's grandmother, Ruthie, she was on the phone and she was talking to somebody for a little while, a girl, and she thought this girl was her granddaughter who was living in Texas. So after a little bit of talking, she asks who she thought was her granddaughter who's living in Texas about her granddaughter's mother. As soon as she asked a personal question about this girl's mother, who she thought was her granddaughter's mother, this girl just hung up and she never heard from the girl again. That's just layer one. The layers go deeper and deeper. Now, another instance was during the summer of 1990, which was 2 years after Myron went missing. Claude answered the phone, and that was Myron's grandfather. And there was a man on the other line, and this man asked for Myron. And Claude said, you know, my grandson has been missing for 2 years. And then the man on the other line just hung up. The next one was a phone call across the street from the home on Pecan Road to Myron's best friend's home. Myron's best friend answered the phone. The boy on the other line asked, "How's grandma doing?" His best friend told him that she had been recently hospitalized. The caller then just hung up. Myron's best friend still wonders if the person who called could have possibly been Myron. We have heard of so many cases with prank calls, and most of the prank phone calls are quite menacing, and usually the person is taunting the family in some way. These phone calls though, they were very short and didn't make any sense. Maybe when you think about it, the people who made these calls made the calls short so they couldn't be traced. Maybe they made them short to make them more mysterious. We don't know. No one really knew what to make of these strange phone calls, but then the strange phone calls turned to strange letters. Many of them. Never with a return address, just a stamp from South Texas. These letters started coming to the home on Pecan Road when Claude and Ruthie were still alive. These letters were always addressed specifically to Ruthie Traylor. Then, after they passed away and Sandra moved in, the letters were then addressed specifically to her. This is something that she has made known terrifies her. How did this person know that she was now the one living there? Did someone have their eye on the home and the family? Apparently so. These letters, they're odd. They have a main theory in them though, which I'll get to in a minute. But before we get into that, there's one weirder thing about them, and that is that the person who is writing them gets Myron's name wrong in the letters. This person calls him Byron. This is one thing that is just so peculiar to Sandra and everyone else. This person writing the letters knew when someone else moved into the home, but couldn't get the victim's name correct. Anyways, this tipster in the letters claimed that Myron, who they called Byron, had been abducted by members of the Mexican mafia in that area of Phoenix, and that two main members of this mafia were involved in his disappearance. This tipster did give the name of these two men and said that these two men were responsible for not only abducting Myron, but also killing him, and that these two men were also responsible for killing a family in South Phoenix. This tipster also gave very gruesome details as to what the men did to Myron's body after killing him to dispose of his remains. The writer of these letters claimed that the men took Myron to an area where they held chicken fights and fed his body to the hogs on the property and then threw away whatever was left of him, which is one of the most horrible things I have ever read in my entire life. According to Sandra, she did know that one of these men did live right around where Debbie did in 1988. She said that police, though, have never gone and questioned either of these men and found out if they did have any involvement in Myron's disappearance or not. Even the tipster wrote a letter to Sandra claiming they were upset that police never looked into these two men and that they were waiting to hear any news of any recent updates in the case. Still to this day, they have never discovered who this tipster was. They do not know who was sending those letters. From my knowledge, authorities also never took this writer's claims very seriously. From my research, police have taken many tips seriously, but not really this one. There's been many times where police received a call or letter claiming that Myron may be buried here or there, and they would go to these locations and dig, bring cadaver dogs and search around. They never found anything, but they would still try to look into these tips and try to see if there was anything to back them up. But with this theory about two members of the Mexican mafia in the area of Phoenix, Arizona being involved in Myron's disappearance and death, they never took it seriously. One of the main times in this case when police took a tip very seriously was in 1991 when police received a tip that Myron was buried on a property in Phoenix near 24th Street and Jones Avenue. They searched this area and they found nothing. Every tip in this case seemed to always hit a dead end, but could this theory about him possibly being abducted and killed by these two men in the Mexican mafia be the one tip that would actually go somewhere? As of right now, we don't know. Sandra, though, wishes that police would take this tip more seriously. Sandra stated that the last odd incident revolving around her home and Myron's disappearance happened in October of 2016, which was only 5 years ago. She said that on the 22nd of October, 3 men came to her door on Pecan Road. She said she doesn't have a doorbell, but she has a security door, and obviously you can't blame her for that. And she said that they knocked on the door and she looked out. There were 3 men. She said she didn't have her glasses on, so she couldn't really see their faces too well through the glass, but she said 100% there were 3 grown men at her door. She asked them what they wanted, and one of the men said that his last name was Traylor, and that he is in the area from Texas, that he heard from his mother that he had some family in the area and wanted to know if she was someone he was related to. She said that the person even asked for her son by name, who, remember, is Myron's cousin. Sandra was all by herself at home. She didn't want to answer the door, which, you know, I mean, I wouldn't either, and she told them to come back later when she would have someone there with her to answer the door. The three men agreed and they left, but Sandra never saw these three men again. Sandra said that she squinted at their vehicle as they drove off and she could see the name trailer on the side of it in stickers. Sandra, she, from what I read, kind of kicks herself for not answering the door that day. She doesn't know if that was actually Myron or not, but she wishes she opened the door to ultimately find out. Could this have been just somebody in the family that Sandra did not know of? That is a huge possibility, because if it was possibly Myron still alive, Myron was 13 when he disappeared, so he would have, of course, known his aunt unless he had some sort of memory loss. You really don't know. I honestly could not imagine being in Sandra's shoes. She has been tirelessly trying to find her nephew for 33 years now, this month in July. She has received phone calls and letters, and then someone shows up to her door and she still has no solid answers. I could not imagine the frustration and the heartache. As you can see in this photo, Sandra is holding a photo of Myron, and on the back wall behind her is his number 33 jersey that she still has kept all these years. In today's time, authorities believe that Myron was killed not long after his abduction and possibly buried somewhere in Phoenix, and Sandra still lives at the Pecan Road home in the hopes that more information about Myron will be found out eventually, and if anyone phones again, writes another letter, or shows up, she'll be there. MYRON TIMELL TRAYLOR would be 46 years old. He is a black male who was 13 years old at the time of his disappearance. He had black hair and brown eyes. He was last seen wearing a red and white striped shirt, white shorts with blue print on them, and white sneakers. He did have glasses he used for reading, but he did not have them with him the day that he went missing. He was 5 feet, 5 inches tall and weighed about 110 pounds. If you have any information regarding the disappearance of Myron, you are urged to call the Phoenix Police Department. You can call in a tip to 602-534-2121 and ask to speak with Detective Stuart Summershoe. Anonymous tips can be made by calling Silent Witness at 480-948-6377. This right here is an age progression photo done of what Myron may look like in today's time. The theories revolving around Myron's case go on and on. There are so many theories in this case, but in today's video, I just brought up the main ones and the ones with some sort of substance to them. With this case, like so many other cases, a lot of people who look into this case, a lot of people who are involved in this case, relatives of Myron, friends of Myron, believe that somebody out there, possibly still in the Phoenix area, knows what happened to Myron. This case is just so heartbreaking and frustrating, and my heart goes out to his family, like always. Sandra, if you're watching this, I couldn't even begin to imagine what you have gone through for so long, and I hope that all of the puzzle pieces can come together to finish this puzzle that is the mystery of what happened to Myron. To my viewers, thank you for taking a little bit of time out of your day to hear about and learn about Myron's case. If you have any comments about the case yourself, leave those down below in the comment section of this video. I try to read through all of my comments. If you have any cases that you want to request for me to do on my channel, you can email those to gabulosiscaserequests@gmail.com, and I will see you all in my next one.